we'll start with this. Are we across the finish line? Are we on the 1 yard line? The Bill Belichick to UNC deal. Can we talk about it as if he's the future of UNC?
Yeah, I mean, yesterday we reported that an offer had been made to Bill Belichick. He'd already been reported saying that he would accept an offer if it was made. We got a report this morning that there's an expectation of an emergency meeting to be called with the board of trustees. So you look at that Inside Carolina report, finalizing a deal. I mean, it's all semantics at this point. To finalize the deal, the board has to meet. The board has to approve the contract. Now, I've been checking in with my sources. That meeting has not yet been called, but the expectation here, I think, with everybody around Chapel Hill is that this is happening.
All right, then my next question is how? How the heck did we get here? How do you even discover that Bill Belichick is interested in something like this? It seems like, that wouldn't even be a call you make.
Yeah, I mean, this is a little bit me projecting, connecting the dots based on also what I'm hearing as well. And I think what happened was Carolina didn't initially go into this thinking they were going to hire Bill Belichick. I mean, when his name first got floated out, I think most of us thought it was just a smokescreen, a way for him to get an NFL job, a way for him to kind of launch a PR campaign that he was really serious about getting back into the coaching world. But I think what happened was John Summerall at Tulane, who was the consensus top candidate out there, pulls his name out of the running. And then at the conceding timeline with that is Bill Belichick emerges as a serious candidate. I had a source tell me on Monday that this was serious, this was real, and that there was real donor support at Carolina for Bill. And then Bill goes on the Pat McAfee show and basically does a job interview on live television. So at that point, I think we knew it was real. And, there's some people out there that still doubt if this is a good fit. And, I'm rooting for it, at least from a content standpoint. I think the football standpoint is debatable. But I think what happened here is that Carolina looked around and they said, look, we can do worse than the best football coach of all time. It's either Bill Belichick or Jeff Monken, up-and-coming assistant in college football. Those are no guarantees either. So I think, Bill Belichick at a minimum is going to bring a ton of eyeballs to the program. It's going to make them the national spotlight. And I think there's a real chance that they win under him as well.
Pat Welter, WRAL, connecting with us on the Heister Automotive Group hotline here on The Drive. Obviously, if you just took Bill Belichick and dropped him into a traditional college football structure, it's going to be a different buzz. But how revolutionary are you hearing that the actual system, hierarchy, I don't even know what to call it. Some reports out there are Bill Belichick wants to almost completely redesign what a college football front office is.
Yeah, I mean, Carolina, as it stands right now, has a general manager, so they've been operating in the modern NIL landscape with somebody whose job, Patrick Sudis, was dedicated to kind of managing recruits, managing some of the NIL and the transfer portal aspects to all of this. But Bill Belichick, notorious control freak. We saw the reports out yesterday about his 400-page Bible. My source had no knowledge of this Bible, but I feel pretty confident that, yeah, Bill Belichick's going to come in here with some very specific wants and needs. And I think that's probably what's holding this up, right? Is Bill Belichick knows what he wants to win. Carolina knows what they have resources-wise and what to offer. And I think there was a little bit of a standoff is what I'm imagining happened here, right? Because it all comes down to leverage, right? Bill Belichick, why does he want Carolina? Well, I think we can safely assume it's probably because he didn't have an NFL job offer out there. I imagine his agent was telling him, hey, there's nothing out here for you as an NFL head coach. Well, Carolina is the best college opening in the country. So who has the leverage in this standpoint? So I think that's what's going on in some of the negotiations where Belichick's saying what he wants, Carolina's saying this is what we can give, and a little bit of standoff. But as it appears, we're reaching the finish line finally.
What does it say about UNC's commitment to football that, even if they don't meet every demand in the reported 400-page organizational Bible, what does it mean if kind of they're able to get close, right, to just their commitment to maybe not being a basketball school, as everybody wants to call them, and making a football commitment?
Well, I think what we've seen based on some of our reporting at WRAL, some of the national reporting out there's a lot of conflicting opinions and agendas at Carolina. We saw this on the way out with Mac Brown, with John Pryor, members of the board not being happy with how that went down. I've reported that there was a split among people that that didn't support Bubba Cunningham and his future at Carolina. But then on the other side of the coin, the athletics office would tell you that they have invested and they have the numbers to prove it in this athletic program, in the football program specifically under Mack Brown, and have made major investments to it. I would say the truth lies somewhere in the middle, right? Like, I think the last couple of years, Carolina was lucky to keep Omarion Hampton. They were lucky to keep Drake May. These were kids that are from North Carolina, had emotional ties to the school. But in the real NIL landscape, we just saw a Duke quarterback walk out the door after 1 year. If they didn't have that loyalty tied in, I think they would have lost potentially both of those players. So, and we're seeing it in basketball as well. Carolina, the roster has a problem right now in its construction, and some of that is tied to NIL. You got AJ DeBenedicta going to BYU. So I think Carolina thinks they're in a good position financially, but college football is changing and college athletics are changing by the day. It's a little unfortunate how tied winning seems to money, and Carolina is going to need more money to win. But then you look at Bill Belichick, who's historically won with lesser talent, one of the greatest game plan in-game coaches of all time, that I think regardless of where they're at resources-wise, his on-field football product should be, at least they're not going to get out-coached by BC. Let's just put it that way on the road.
Pat Welter, WRAL Sports Reporter. Pat, before we let you go, and thank you, and I guarantee you today is a wild day for you, just like it is for us, so thank you for taking the time. When you hire a 70-something-year-old coach, the succession plan has to be at least part of the conversation. Steve Belichick's name has been brought in. Some of the names mentioned as assistant coaches are A-listers. Have you heard anything about, now that we're kind of assuming Bill Belichick's going to be the guy, who might be coming with him?
I've had a source emphatically tell me that nothing has been promised as far as like coach in waiting to Stephen Belichick. Now, we're going to see, right? Like, this contract's going to be available for us publicly because UNC is a public institution. So we're going to see if there's language in there that says that. It's hard, if they did put that in there, that wouldn't necessarily be the greatest PR move, right? So maybe it's more of a handshake thing if it even exists. But like I said, I've been emphatically told that wasn't true, at least in the part of the process that my source was tied into. So we'll see. I think one of the downfalls with Belichick in New England was actually his staff, right? Like, at the end, this is a guy that was notorious for building a coaching tree, was known as a great GM, but in the end, he was making puzzling roster decisions, puzzling staff decisions. There was the whole offensive coordinator conundrum with Matt Patricia. It just didn't make a lot of sense from the outside. So that's kind of where some of that age comes through, where it seemed like, Belichick was bringing in his buddies and not necessarily the best minds in football. So that's certainly something I'm looking for here. How much power are they giving Bill Belichick with the staff? And has he learned from his year away what he really does need to do to win?